Hello, mech fans. This is Duncan Fisher. Hold on firmly to your mana potions, fireballs, and familiars, because you are tuning in to your regularly scheduled episode of the First Circuit Podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 123. Tonight's hosts are Ian.
Hello.
With a mustache. Biter.
Vlog.
And myself, Woodboy10025. The topics tonight include Invasion and Resistance Sale, Skilled Pilot Event, bonus things while buying MC, PSR update, hold on the patch, and the feedback for round 1. All coming up next.
Yeah, so the Invasion 1 and 2 and the Resistance 1 and 2 packs were off by 30% some days ago. So
yeah,
it's all in the past.
The 50% off the MC and MC build costs.
Yeah.
And all weapons 30% off. So if you wanted to buy weapons, some people, at least when you're starting out, it's nice for cheaper weapons. And one-shot camos 50% off. Your usual sale. We're quite past it already, but yeah, usual sale type stuff.
It's a thing that happened.
I mean, the weapons are good because, like, what Gauss rifle, heavy Gauss rifles, 1.2 million or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? Yeah. So
heavy Gauss rifle, LB20s, those are the big guns.
Yeah, true. Oh, yeah. One-shot camos. I have a lot of mechs that are one-shot camos, and so like that'll be good for me because I gotta buy the Lao picture because they don't have an MOC one. They don't have an MOC camo, so I'm gonna buy the Lao one based off the Trinity, off of lore stuff.
Yeah, the only thing is sometimes whilst it's really tedious for them to list out every single variant being 50% off, like in some things, I do wish that they actually showed us just quickly listing off the names of the mechs that are on sale, rather than, well, in the end, you usually, if you're buying it for C-bills, which I think you really should, it was, you just buy it in the in-game store anyway, and that's where it shows it, so that's where it matters.
Yeah. Okay, so that's Invasion 1 and 2. Let's get to the skill pilot event.
Could just finish off with the sales of the bonus content with MC purchase. This is the usual thing where they just give extra freebies with purchasing a large amount of MC. Usually, if you buy the biggest package, you get something like a single hero mech. But obviously, you're paying $100 unis for an okay amount of MC, sure, but the hero mech is of course worth a lot less than that. So it's the benefits are always quite minor, so we usually just ignore those. So it's returned, and I don't still really care.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's multiple phases. Just
get your calendar ready.
Get my calendar ready. Yes.
Do you know why they do that? I'm just curious. Like, do you have an idea why they do that kind of stuff?
The 2 phases.
Yeah.
I'm not sure because you could just do a separate post the next week later, but it does spam the front page with posts. There is just the idea of at least if you only have a week to decide, it feels there's a bit more of a time pressure. So if you have 1 week for one event, 1 week for the other, you feel pressured. Otherwise, though, it leads to a lot of confusion where people, at least when it switches over, by the time it's processed, will they have gotten the prior week's mechs or the next week's mech? Or whatever they're going after, and that's a lot of extra little hassle for them. But it is what it is.
We'll have 3 different
I'm
ones.
kind of extra confused on this one because apparently you can get bonus contents for either clan or in a sphere,
and then also gift ones too.
Yeah, you can also gift stuff. But how do you differentiate between the clan content and the inner sphere content? Because this phase, June 24th to 25th, overlaps. So can you
buy them both?
One?
Well, I mean, you can still buy them both, one during that week and one during that week. But then there's also, too, the gifting as well, which is completely different types of mechs. And so basically trying to suck more money out of you, basically. If you want to get the Firestarter or the Piranha, which, where the Piranha is $14.95 for the clan one to 24th to the 29th. So they could overlap. So, like, basically at the same time you got bonus content for clans, you also got gifting bonus content for Inner Sphere, the 19th to the 24th, and then it overlaps with clan Inner Sphere for the other one too. So there's 3 different types of sales, or 2 different types of sales, but 3 different types of sales. I don't know, 3 different types of sales.
It's definitely confusing, basically. But I'm not quite certain how you pick your reward if you have to go to your profile. Oh, there are notes.
Yeah. Read the
Yeah, you
notes.
must redeem during the promotion to get bonus content. No, that's just to redeem.
Yeah.
There's nothing here on how you pick either Inner Sphere or Clan Reward, so that is certainly confusing to me.
Well, it's probably when you actually go and gift it too. You know, when you let's say I'm going to gift you $14.95 during the week of the 19th and 24th, you're going to get a fire starter. But then if you buy on between the 19th and 24th, and you buy a $14.95 package, you get an incubus. Yay, a incubus! So you get one of those things, and that's how that kind of works.
Yeah, I'm really not a fan of having the whole table and times thing, and all the rules regarding redemptions, because it becomes like a legal document you have to decipher to get one hero mech.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah,
I like what they're doing here. So obviously getting bonus content if you buy MC is great, and I mean occasionally some people might still actually want to buy MC. So this is a great time for them to pick up some MC and get some extra stuff that's actually useful. Like 100 skill points and the mech bay is not bad to add on top of some MC if you just wanted some for your customization. So like this is not a bad value in my opinion.
Yeah, I was going to speak on that.
It's just really frustrating to pick this out. So in my opinion, it would be much better if you had the where you go to your profile and then you can select rewards for certain packages you've bought, what they did way in the past some years ago, if they put that back for whenever you buy something like this. So you just choose whatever you want out of these and you don't have to worry about times.
How much, like, so with the lowest bundle, actually, you're getting GSP, so that's enough to scale out one mech.
Yeah.
For $7, and you're getting some MC and the mech bay.
Yeah.
How much is it for the GSP bundles? Like, is it relatively value for money?
Very good question.
Let's see, can you buy? I think you can buy skill points in the store, right?
Yeah. But is it just in-game store?
I think it's under boosters.
Where's boosters?
200. Yeah. Okay, 200 skill points are $10. So you get on. Sorry for all that swapping around. So on top of your $7 MC, you get another $5 worth of skill points, and a mech bay, which is worth another $1.50-ish.
Yeah.
So yeah, not a bad value for the basic one.
Yeah, the value's not bad.
And there's the question of getting the smallest amount of MC just for the loyalty rewards.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was about to say. Assuming we get loyalty rewards this year, because we don't know. Any year could be the last year to have loyalty rewards. And that's a scary thought.
I know.
It's not going to be new mechs, it'll just be all the ones from before. So it's not so crucial as like, spending $7 for the Missile Irby.
They might do something. Well, last year they couldn't do it because they were working on Mechwarrior 5, and so this year they're not really doing that much because everything's pretty much done. They just gotta have a couple guys work on scenes and maps and crap like that. So they might actually do some new mechs. I mean, that would be the good thing for them to do.
Yeah, they said they wouldn't do more mech packages, but I would really enjoy if they did some variants, even if they're not like crazy new variants. Just swap around some hardpoint, something that should be fairly simple.
Yeah.
Especially if you just take a mech and basically mirror it the other way around, so you can just go into the model and press mirror and the model is done. Something like that. Like, even if it's something simple and stupid like that, just to have it feel like it's something new.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can always just shove like ECM onto a mech and remove some hard points like they did with the Marauder, and you're good to go.
Okay, so bonus MC content is still it's confusing. Take a look at it if you're interested. It's still gonna be going by the time you're listening to this podcast.
Get your calendars ready, man.
All right. Skilled pilot event. This one's going on for a couple of weeks. It's one of those more lengthy ones. You actually have to do bigger requirements, and I'm not sure. I don't really care so much for the rewards. I much prefer the weekly ones where you get your small little dosages and they all are easy to work towards and can get worked towards fairly quickly. This one though, you can right from the top. It's just like 5,000 damage with every single energy type. So weapon type. So energy, ballistic missile, 15,000 damage, and in the end you get 20 general skill points and some C bills. It's nice, but it's I'm always sort of looking for the MC and particularly, of course, premium time.
Yeah.
And it's just these are all some are easier than others, but it's just like 25 UAV detections. You can get that in 2 games, and sometimes you can get that in like 20 games.
Yeah, it all depends.
One headshot kill.
We don't condone it, but go to slurs.
Yeah, exactly. Get a Solaris headshot
it's
kill.
Just the premium time is locked behind a headshot. Beyond that, it's a fairly standard event. Just play the game over those 2 weeks, and you're more than likely to finish them. Besides playing, because most of these are fairly simple. There's one solo kill, which the solo kill, the headshot are the ones that might prove trouble to some people. Beyond that, I think even if you're not that great at the game, you're gonna get these done within a week or 2.
But you said solo kills, you said? Oh, earn one solo kill, yeah.
Yeah, single one, that's not.
Yeah. Destroy UAV, that's an awesome one.
Yup.
Yeah.
So maybe skip the sniper class challenge and do the rest.
Yeah. Yeah, standard crap. You just go and play the game and get some GSP, MC like rewards. One thing I always did say about like Mechwarrior is that it's very easy to actually get MC if you just play the game. You really don't have to spend that much money. But if you like the game, do spend money though, if you guys can. So yeah, that's one thing I like about the game. They hand it out. They hand out like MC like candy. It's like, here, have some candy. Here's some. Have some MC. That's one thing I like about like PGI actually.
Yeah.
And I definitely like the addition of general skill points. I think they're a great addition to rewards.
And then not just handing them out 1 or 2 at a time.
God, I know.
Yeah.
That was horrible.
Yeah.
That was horrific, man. But yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Not bad. It's what, 500 MC if you do everything? Is it right?
Usually it's about that amount, yeah. I haven't added it up personally yet.
Yeah, still 500 is not bad. If you do everything. And if you just play the game, that's all you got to really do. And hopefully someone drops your UAV. So you'll be able to get that last one.
It's like 400 in total.
Yeah. Cool. And this goes on from when the win. 9 days left, so it'll be 8 days left when this podcast comes out.
Yeah, it's going on for 2 weeks, so
okay.
There's time to actually achieve this, which is nice.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, sounds good. Sounds great. Okay, so
all right.
Okay.
Main topic for today: the ongoing discussions about the matchmaking, the PSR, pilot skill rating changes.
Mm-hmm.
PGI did produce a post giving clarifications on the stomp numbers and their own numbers about what they're proposing to how they're going to change things, which they have now. Well, they've I think they've gone back on that. Is the quick way to say that.
Yeah.
Because as people were quite rightly saying, at least the changes were more the issue with the matchmaker in the past was always just that as long as enough match score was earned on both sides, everybody would sort of be going up, and that's why everybody in the end went to the top of the bracket in tier 1. And even if you make the numbers more conservative, it's still not necessarily always going to be zero sum, which is what the key term that they're driving towards. And the big thing I think we should cover is the PSR Community FeedBack Round 1 that was posted on the forums, where Paul, I think it is, goes through the various models suggested by the community to have a truly zero-sum system, and his thoughts on the matter.
Yeah. Before we dive into that post, though, you guys did a in-between episode last week. Did you cover this initial post and the statement from us?
We didn't do it in between.
No.
Yeah, like last week. We waited for you.
Last week it was just us chitter and just figuring out what we're doing.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe to quickly summarize, when they announced that they would stop the patch and basically try to get more feedback. They also included a statement from WAS. I think the main thing that's interesting here are some confirmations on current Mechwarrior Online player numbers, which we don't have access to because we can only see the Steam stats, which are, as we all know, maybe somewhere between 40 and 60% of the community. Probably we don't know which side is favored, but yeah. MWO apparently peaks at 1,500 players online in the evening and averages at 1,000 players. So this is kind of cool. And the queue, the number of players in queue are somewhere from 24 to 50 at low points and as high as 80 to 100 at peak playtime, which still 80 to 100 player, if you need 24 for a single match, is not a big bucket to take your match from. So that's definitely interesting to see.
To go draw it from your player base, basically, in order to go and have your, to go and make the queues. Yeah, true.
And then in my opinion, completely unprecedented amount of PGI taking feedback was that they would take complete feedback from the community. They just gave out all the values. So here was the initial suggestion on how they could split up, blah, 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 not too interesting. But they gave us a full list of every event in-game they can track and award match score for. And this is really interesting because I don't think we've had this kind of complete list. I mean, people pieced it together, but this is, I think, the first time we've officially had confirmation what they can do in-game. So this is cool. And they specifically asked the community to provide their own formula on how to calculate match score and in extent how to calculate PSR based on these events that can be tracked in-game.
Yeah, I
so
think
this is really cool. If you're interested, go ahead and check out the forum post by Paul.
Oh, definitely. I think BrioS did a long time ago did a thing about like how to get really good match score. I'll leave a link to his his video if I can still find it. But yeah, this is amazing because I had so many questions about how you get these types of things like for scouting, what like what do we get for that, or tag kill, like all this other stuff. And this actually explains a lot better for the new people like out there as well what's going on. So this is great that they did this, which is, like you said, unprecedented. That they actually gave some information.
So in game, when you finish a match, there's that central column. I'm just trying to do from memory. Isn't that because I always just use that to indicate what was achieved in the match and probably what actually contributed towards match score. The thing was, that list would say things like narc kills, so the number of times you helped with the narc.
I knew you were going to go to that one.
Well, it's one of the more obscure things, whereas, protect light or medium, is often you get that, a plenty. You didn't know you were triggering it. Whereas, tags and narc kills, that's only really because you actually took those things out and used them. And the narc kill is a very definitive, obvious thing that happens. And so it told you got 2 narc kills, but you had no idea how much that contributed to the match score. And we still don't know, but it's nice at least having just a list. And this is the list he says that is just the ones that that currently trigger and do apply to the match score. Half of them are green for some reason. I'm not sure why.
I think the green ones are the one that give you. Never mind.
No.
Okay. Yeah. No idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I too would have preferred to see the current value that's assigned to each of these things. That would be really cool to see. And another thing, this list would be a great base for something like an official wiki for a new player to look up what they can do to improve their match score.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, technically, there's a wiki that even has a new player guide. Now, if only this thing was something that got actually promoted and used.
Because that's the PGI's own little wiki that they sort of threw together. But yeah.
Which is
it's not even bad. It's just I wish they would use it and like build on it. But okay, derailing. Sorry.
Yeah. As ever, it's like more and more numbers would always be great, but I'm glad that at least they are opening up to the community and really giving us a lot more insight than we've ever really seen before. And they're really listening to the community, as we'll get into. So it's all relatively good signs, though. At least with matchmaking, as we mentioned, there's only so well you could do if there's 24 to 80 players searching in a queue, and these kind of changes, matchmaking changes, have the most impact if you do it early on, because they will have impact to your player numbers. So they only have that impact will stack over time, and so it's really important to get your matchmaker done first rather than last.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's nothing we can add on that. It's kind of too late. It's still cool to see, and if you're interested, you should definitely check out this forum post and the follow-up post. There are a lot of community suggestions. So kind of like you may have heard of the community rebalance project thingy, where they put together a giant documents detailing all the changes that they would like to see to make the game more balanced. That was done by some of the veteran players in the community. And basically similar thing is happening here. There are groups that are building up of veteran players who have some understanding of matchmaking, who are trying to put together proposals on how to calculate match score and PSR changes. And it's cool to see how much effort is going into a lot of these things. At the same time, it's kind of too much effort for us to really break it down on this podcast. So if you're interested, check out the forum and read up on them for yourself.
Links for everything too.
All right, so that much for the initial announcement and PGI asking feedback. And after they've gotten a lot of feedback, let me just scroll up because I zoomed in too much. They actually gathered some feedback for the feedback and made some statements regarding the feedback they got. Bida, do you want to summarize it?
Okay, so to cut down to brass tacks at least, Paul is talking about, there's two core systems at place where, instead of just only basing it on your match score, which has the issues that if everybody, takes like streak mechs or something like that, and they're all in assault mechs, they're all going to do tons of damage, and they're all going to get lots of match score, and everybody goes up. Instead, to make it truly, what's the term again? Where it's the scores cancel out.
Zero sum.
Yeah, zero sum. I'll say zero sum. The first system is just simply we will organize all the match scores of the various players, and we will give the biggest gain to the people on top and our biggest loss to those at the bottom, and all the stuff kind of in between. This way, so effectively, if you imagine you had like 5 players and all of them performed kind of well, a variety of performances. The one who performed average doesn't change. The ones who perform slightly well gets like +5. The ones who perform slightly poorly get -5. And the ones who perform the worst and the bestest get +10 and -10.
Yeah.
That way, the total number of points within the system do not change. But it doesn't matter whether you necessarily win or lose, though there is currently at least an extra match score for the winning side. But if you are in the winning side and you're AFK under this system, you would probably be, on the minus. You would be like getting the -10 points because you didn't get much match score. You got the participation trophy. Whereas if you fought really, really hard on the losing side, you might still get +5 or +10 points. And yeah, 1A, 1B. 1B is just trying to, it's the suggestion is trying to scale it. So let's say there's a lance of tryhards on the team, and they all get a crazy amount of match score. They delete the enemy team. Well, they will get all the points, whereas all the people who performed abysmally will get a huge deduction in points, so to speak. You're trying to even out the points according to what they are. It's not just a flat scale. So if you do twice as well as the others, you're going to get twice as much gain as the other people, and that's 1B.
Yeah, and the important part about 1A and B, 1A has a fixed number of players that can get +10 and +5 respectively, as well as -5 and -10 respectively. Whereas this can be an uneven distribution. So more people can get rating than lose. Which is why the second proposal would break zero sum.
It depends how you do the algorithm, because you could do it basically that we're going to throw around 100 points, but It also depends on the distribution. You could have 10 players who perform averagely and each gain 2 points each. And then that means on the other side, you're minusing a lot. Or you can have it just 1 or 2 people gain a lot, but you can still mathematically make it so that the numbers balance out. Though it is a lot harder to figure out in your head, but it is the better way to reward players for, their individual performances, if it can be done properly, which is the tricky thing for PGI with their resources and whatnot. And the second system, the core 2 system, is just we only give points to the winning side and we only take points from the losing side. And the main difference again is just simply the best performers under the first system will get 10 points plus 5 points or not really change at all. And on the losing team, the best performers won't move. Those who do kind of average will lose some points, and those who do terribly will lose a lot of points. And 2B is just simply, again, weighting it according to the exact match made, how much they've actually made themselves.
Yeah.
And trying to weight your victory points at the end. So that's at least what Paul has taken away from the feedback, and I think he indicates that he's most interested in carrying forward with the core 1 system, the system where it's only ranked on your match score rather than only giving points to winners and only giving points, taking away points from losers, which I think I would personally agree with.
Yeah. Let's maybe start with this one, whether we prefer the version A in either of the 2 versions or the version 2. Mm-hmm. And I'm totally with you, but I think like this system on paper doesn't look bad, since it is a team game, and I know the whole argument, if you lose, then obviously you've done something wrong. But yeah, I completely see how this the second system would feel frustrating to a lot of people. So I'm definitely also preferring version 1.
Yeah.
As long as the win-loss thing is still factored into your match score by a significant amount, because I do think it should be factored in as an important factor, but it shouldn't be completely reliant on whether you win or lose as to whether you rise or fall.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of games where we have a losing streak. I mean, I've had a couple and they're like been 12 losing streak. And so like, that would just knock me down to a point where I don't want to go play anymore, basically. To go and do that, to go ahead and gain some tiers. So yeah, like I do like the 1B as well. But like you said though, it's the winning and losing will actually definitely add on or take away depending on what if you win or lose. I like that as well. But to have it like the winning team only gains points, that just sucks. It's horrible. I never do like that. I never did like it like in the system we have now.
Yeah, the system, the way it works, at least, as I mentioned, if you are AFK on the winning team, you really shouldn't really be counted as the same level as you were before, or even improving. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really make much sense for you to be equivalent to the best players on the losing team. You were AFK the whole match. You were carried by your team. With the first system, you would be probably one of the lower match score players, and you would lose the most ELO. And if you're AFK, if you're truly AFK, that makes sense, because obviously a move mech that doesn't move isn't very skillful. It is unfortunate, of course, for the many people who suffer from issues like disconnects and stuff. But at least in the end, I feel that's better. Also, there's a question of, at least in my mind, there are those matches where you have both sides are trading out fairly equally until it comes down to the last 2 mechs, a one-on-one fight. And it's really close and it's down to the wire. Under that system, under the core system number 1, if there was some, if you were contributing to the team that just barely lost, you would still see increase to your player skill rating, because in the end, you probably got a fairly good match score because it was a close game.
Yeah.
With the second system, where losers only ever are neutral or lose points, it feels incredibly punitive to the losing team, when in a lot of matches it could be actually quite close. And yeah, so that's why I think I agree. I think I much prefer the first system, where winning and losing is just weighed into the match score.
Well, plus also too,
and
like,
also,
oh, go ahead.
Okay, to bring in some examples from other games, just to give a perspective to people who are maybe not too involved in Mechwarrior, Hearthstone, for example, has basically the second system where you only gain rank if you actually win. In Hearthstone, that is perfectly fine because it's a 1-versus-1 game. So all the team performance is based on you. So it's fine there. League of Legends is another example of the second system. And as someone who has played League of Legends ranked for a long time, I can tell you this system is not great for your morale because League of Legends is a 5-versus-5 team game, and every single person can decide whether you win or lose. So if 4 people are playing excellent and then the 5th person just throws the game and you lose because of that one guy and everyone loses score, it's a terrible feeling. And that's with 5-player. If you've got something like Mechwarrior Online, okay, it probably takes more than one person to throw a game, but still it's an even higher chance because there are more people that someone will indeed make that difference between winning or losing, and you can't impact that at all. So that's why I'm thinking, looking at other games like League of Legends, this version 2 has a really high chance of being way too frustrating.
Yeah. With
Yeah.
the whole thing about 2 is like from the tryhards is like they wanted to actually have it where it's based off skill, which the first core 1 would be it, because they'll be getting the most type of match score and everything else, and actually
Core
raising up.
2.
Yeah, core 2.
Core 2 rewards the most in skill because if
Yeah.
you carry the entire team on your back single-handed, you will get a lot of gain, whereas everyone else is kind of neutral or even losing points because
Yeah.
you just did so much work, and that will shoot you up in the tiers quickly. Whereas in the first system, where it's a more uniform point distribution, as long as you're one of the best 4 players, one of them just mildly, was in an assault mech, and the other one is, in a medium mech carrying the team. And it's just like, oh, well, that assault mech kind of shot some things, so he's just as good as the medium that did 2k damage.
Yeah, exactly. So like, this is a big argument that the tryhard's been having, and I think the core 1B would be the best one to go ahead and do it based off skill and not off like anything else, winning or losing per se. According to what the win-loss ratio is for the points, depending on what that is, because we don't know yet, like how much that's going to affect your match score.
Yeah, so I think we can all kind of agree that 1B would probably be the best solutions out of these, as long as the math behind the thing is properly done.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's a few other things in this post, at least, or thoughts I had. Just sort of, he mentions at the beginning, PSR public player skill rating. He confirms, we're going to start at tier 3, 1,500. Everyone starts with 1,500 PSR, and it can go between. You can lose all the way to 0 and gain all the way up to 3,750. So that's sort of the range we're talking to. Everyone starts in the middle, and the goal is always to give and take away points equally from all 24 players. So that's a 0 that remains the 0 sum.
Yeah. So, and speaking of 0 sum, it's important to address. In this suggestion, he says that 1B would break 0 sum. That is assuming that color green means +10 and color yellow +5 and orange -5 and red -10.
Yeah.
And yeah, as Bida said, it's important here that you don't have these very fixed brackets of plus and minus numbers, but rather to dynamically formulate them so that in total you still have 0 sum, even if more people level up than rank down.
Yeah. With the other system, just to put some numbers to it, we have 4 players with +10, so 40, and then 4 players with +5, so 20. So 60 points are given to some people, and 60 points are taken from the others. So with the distributed system, you could do a similar thing where 60 points in total are being given to a certain number of players, and 60 points are taken away from the other players.
Well, what if 2 people have the same type of match score, like say player 1 and 2? How's that going to work?
Then they got the same number of points.
Oh, okay. So like 10, 20. Okay, yeah. So 50 points. Let's say like 10 for each green type thing. Look at the top ones then. So let's say 6 people have the same type of match score. Never happened, but let's just say that happens.
It never happened. Well, they then because then if it depends as well, if are they average, are they the above average or below, how do they compare to everyone else, and where do they slot in? Because are they going, you could give them, they could take some of the plus 60, they could take some of the minus 60, or they could all be given 0, depending where they are relative to the others.
Okay. Just putting those
Yeah, so Bob, assuming your example, let's assume that player 1 to 5 all have the exact same match score, and player 6 to 12 all have the exact same match score but lower. Then you would probably take the 60 and divide it by, oh god, I can't do the math right now. But basically have these 5 people get the same match score, which is the same PSR change, which is slightly more than these guys. But in total, the top 12 players should be plus 60 PSR.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
That's kind of the suggestion here.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I guess my thoughts on this whole entire suggestion is everyone's starting in the middle, 1,500 tier 3. This has some downsides compared to at least some other systems, or at least how MWO was in the past, where it had a great at the moment we have a kind of a good playpen pit effect, where new players are often matched up against each other in tier 5. That everyone starts off with the easiest matches, and then after they prove themselves proficient, they slowly climb up and they join the crowd. Right now, that's sort of what we have, a 2-tier system, and that does mean for newer players or those who lose a lot or not so good, that they get to remain in lower tiers. With this, though, everyone's going to be stuck in tier 3, and it will take you at least how it has been in the past. It takes you a while to move around, at least with the old values. And it could very well be that it takes you a while to move around with the new values, in which case everyone is stuck in tier 3 for quite some time. And even after it's fixed itself out, if you're a new player, are you thrown into the middle of the pack, where everybody is average, and the average player who's playing MWO still is somewhat capable at the game? I would imagine they are at least not fresh green right after doing the tutorial. The people who have just done tutorial want to actually be in tier 5, but the way you are doing this point system, where it's truly neutral, where no points are added or removed from the system. It means a new player, if they start in tier 5, they have to steal points away from the existing player base that happened in the past. Like there's a certain amount of pointage left within the system, and there's a scarcity of points, so to speak. And I'm not sure necessarily that generates the best new player experience. Of course, MWO isn't necessarily getting the most new players, but there are still some people. There's still, at least we've seen, people on streams and whatnot, people trickling in, finding out about Mechwarrior Online. And I'm not sure about throwing them to the wolves of tier 3 and waiting until to lose tiers as well. Like the psychology involved of you start in the middle and you just fall down the mountain. It just feels really bad. Whereas the current system, where you start at the bottom and you crawl your way up, it feels rewarding and engaging. And I'm not sure, at least these systems feel a little bit too simple, or they don't cater to the new player experience.
Well, like, as long as and this is a problem PGI has for the longest time, is actually freaking explaining things. As long as they do like a post video, I don't care what the hell they do, saying, okay, new people, here's how this system works. That way they know, in the simplest terms, keep it simple, stupid. Simplest terms, this is how this works. Here's why you're going down and why you're going up. As long as they do that, I don't think that's going to be that much of a problem. But they got to make it so it's easy to find. Or on some...
I don't think that will help. Like, imagine, for the sake of argument, new players are thrown into tier 1. Yeah, we got to make sure they have enough points.
I'm talking about tier 3 though, like going from tier 3 to tier 4. They go, why is that happening? Well, here's the reason why this is happening. Basically, like, as long as they explain it just a little bit better.
Yeah, that's for them to drop down means they actually have to lose a fair number of matches, and that's not a great first player experience. You really want to pitch the newbies against other newbies, and even if you have all the proper proportional, proper materials available, it's MWO is still a very different game for a lot of people to learn. and there's a steep learning curve to start with, and if everybody starts at tier 3 at the beginning, they're being thrown against at least proficient players. They're not experts, but they're
it's only for a
proficient.
little bit though, like until Matchmaker actually kind of evens out with the top tier guys fighting the top tier guys.
Which is why it's crucially important to know how quickly it shoves people into other tiers.
Yeah.
Because in the prior system, it would take us hundreds of games for us to crawl from one tier to the next.
Yeah.
And I'm worried, at least particularly for new players and newbie players, it'll take them a long while for them to actually lose until the system figures out how bad they are. And in some ways, there are, in my mind, at least my solution, there is a way around it, which you do start everyone in tier 5, but you change the values according to what tier you're in. So if you're on the winning side and you're tier 5, instead of getting 10 points, if you're at the top bracket, instead of 10 points, you're getting 20 points. And if you're losing, you're only losing like 5 points.
But you don't go down though, basically, because tier 5's the lowest. So basically, like what you're saying, it's like it feels better just to crawl your way up to the top than actually go from tier 3 to tier 5. But based once you start hitting,
if you're at the exactly. So if you're at the bottom, it's really easy to gain points. If you're at the top, if you're in tier 1, if you lose, you'll and if you do poorly, you will lose a lot of points. And if you win, you won't gain many points. This just naturally will help push people towards the center, which will give you a normal distribution, which is usually roughly what the distribution of player skill anyway. So the most skilled will have to win a lot of games and do really well, and they will slowly accrue their points. And as they get up in tiers, the tiers will mean something more than just the matchmaker. They will also mean it's harder to climb up the mountain.
Yeah, exactly.
This way, you don't have to have everybody starting in the middle, which is the huge detriment to new players.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I've got a few points regarding new players. So first off, there's a new player multiplier that not only applies to skills but also to pilot skill weighting. That one is in the game to basically get people who do a second account to quickly move them out of the new player realm into the realm they belong. So I'm wondering, does that multiplier also apply for negative? If you start in tier 3, I would assume that it's also applied for negative, so you sync faster if you truly belong in tier 5. And at that point, I am with Bida. That's kind of a depressing experience. If you start a game, you're ranked in the dead center of the tier system, and then you play your first 10, 20 games, and suddenly you're at the bottom of the tier. I could see that as a kind of depressing point. So I'm kind of thinking, but also not really, if you might just want to hide tiers, or at least put them at the point where a new player wouldn't necessarily see them.
So what, like after 100 games, basically.
So a lot of games do placement matches. You aren't given an official rank until after you have completed like 10 to 20 placement matches. So the same as your cadet bonus. But once you finish with your cadet bonus, the game has figured out where you kind of are, and therefore you will be finally given your tier.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that would be a probably somewhat worthwhile solution to implement, to just hide the tier for your first 20 or so matches. 25, I think, is cadet bonus, and only then allow you to enable the pop out that shows you your tier.
Well, how about this? Like, basically only show from tier 1 to 3, and then 4 and 5 are mixed in with tier 3. Basically that way, like, no, you don't think so?
At that point, you have imperfect information, and
well, we have imperfect information already. No, basically, we don't know what's going on. But okay.
So I think it is an interesting question of sort of like from a gameplay design standpoint, you sort of do generally like showing people, like, at least the current system, it's an XP bar. You show them the XP bar, and if they start doing well, that it's kind of neat seeing the bar fill over time. And you had that right from the very beginning, rather than suddenly having the bar appear after your first 20 matches. That is the benefit of sort of showing it initially. The funny thing, at least with placement matches, is a question of how it's actually executed, in the sense that I need to look into it more. Like I'm remembering like Overwatch or whatever did like placement matches as well for its ranked gameplay. I forget if you only played against other people who were doing placement matches or whether you were placed against people who were given certain ranks. So the idea would be sort of you win your first 5 games and it's like, okay, these guys are pretty good. I'm going to place them against some more hardcore players. I'm going to place them against the gold or platinum people. Oh, they won against them. Well, I'm going to place them against the grandmaster, and see how they do then. So even though the people doing the placement match don't know it, they're actually facing against some very hardcore opponents, and that it's a great way of taste testing to see what level of skill they're at.
Yeah.
That's the same system that League of Legends uses, where you do actually fight against people who are already ranked. And I think you can even see what rank you're currently playing at if you go on some third-party site to check a other person's rank in game. And yeah, I do think that's the best system. And to again take the example League of Legends, you start out at if you're a new player, you start out at the well, it's no longer the bottom tier, but very kind of the bottom. And if you're a returning player, you start out at depending on where you were in the last season you've played, you get sort of a initial boost. So you don't start in bronze 5 for your placement matches. You start in, let's say, silver 5. And then you can work your way up and down from there in your first 10 placement matches. Whereas if you're completely new, you start in bronze 5. And again, you play against bronze 5 people, you win. So you play against bronze 2 people, you win again, you're in silver now, you lose, you're back in bronze, and up and down for the first 10 matches until you've kind of settled somewhere. And I do really like the system. It's obviously something that would require extra effort from BGI.
Yeah.
Well, they got time now, so they got time.
And there's only so much fiddling with the system you can do when you as we said, the small number of people currently searching. Like we can figure out how to do player skill rating until the cows come home, but in the end, at least, if there's only enough players for 2 to 3 matches, there's only so much you can do to really figure things out. So and ultimately, there's a number attached to my account, to your account, to everyone's account. It's hidden away somewhere. But if there's only 48 people playing or 24 people, searching, it does not matter too much what that number is. They have indicated in the past, at least, that they try and balance the team's player skill ratings. So I will have, at least because I have fairly good results in most of my matches, fairly high player skill rating. So that means I'm usually not going to be, if there's 2 people with really high player skill rating, they'll be put on the other side. So I'm not. It's not me and another pro or whatever, beating all the noobs. So that does have an impact, and that's why at least the player skill rating thing does matter. How much tiers matter, I'm not sure. I think it gives some good bragging rights. But for me, I think, as I said, I like the idea that lower tiers are a gentler slope for new players to get into. I still really like that experience, that first player experience with the beginning of MWO, and that's what we'll be losing with this system. And the question is, are you really gaining that much when there's just only so much optimization to be done with this new system?
So I got a question. Like, what do you think you place as in, let's say, the core 1B? Like, between what number do you think you guys would place in? As far as like, are you between 1 and 10, or 3 and 17 or something like that? I'm just curious.
So I mean, match score for me, obviously, at least I'm often running a streak boat which gets a lot of match score, and that is placed in at least the top 4 almost always.
So you're always going to be like 1 to 4 then?
Most of the time. Obviously, there are matches where it just does not suit my mech, and I can hardly get enough damage in which case, there is variance, and I'll be in the top 12 instead of the top 4.
Okay.
It also comes down to over a really long time for giant sample size, you should be neutral.
No.
I think you have the most fun in most games if your win-loss ratio is a solid 1-to-1.
Yeah.
At least for me, that's the most fun. So I'd say on average, I would hope to land in the exact middle with no gain and loss, because that would mean that my rank is perfect for my skill level. So it's kind of a trick question.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I think ideally with a large enough sample size, a large enough player base, and large enough number of people to matchmake with, that would be the case. The thing is though, the only feedback we're getting with this system would be how it balances out tiers and how it balances out how it balances out the player skill ratings and tiers.
Yeah.
So a tier 1 player, which I win a lot of matches, I'll shoot up to tier 1 with enough matches, and the matchmaking system as they've described it, it will create a lobby and says, okay, there's a tier 1 player waiting, all the tier 1 players, we shove them into this lobby. Oh, it's taking a little bit, let's shove in some tier 2 players, etc., etc. So it's a higher weighted room that it's creating.
It just all depends on how the matchmaker is going to work, like how this tier system is going to be doing, if they're going to change anything or what they'll be doing. So I mean, those numbers are up in the air, right now.
Yeah. If all it did was ever throw in players randomly and just try to balance out tonnage, for example, and make it as fast as possible, then however intricate you make this player skill rating, it wouldn't matter because it has no feedback.
Yeah, exactly.
For the system to matter, it really depends on how useful the player skill rating value is and how it composes the teams and makes sure things are balanced. One thing actually, I mentioned in the post, just as an aside, at least that I remember, he's mentioning, of course, that on average, at least lighter mechs, small, mediums, and lights, they earn, of course, less match score. Currently, the system is more heavily weighted towards those who are dealing damage.
Mm-hmm.
And those who deal damage are, of course, those with more weapons and who can survive longer in a fight, generally. As part of that, it will reward players who are in bigger mechs on average rather than smaller mechs, which isn't necessarily good because it means, my problem was I'll be shooting up in the tiers because I'm a great medium pilot, but then I'm playing all the people who are great in assaults and heavies, and I'm stuck in Turret Warrior Online again. At least that's a concern.
See, like if they actually change it, so like a change of values for the match score for, like say taking objectives or doing stuff that lights have to kind of even that out, I think that would fix it. Basically, or not just doing damage. That's part of it. Don't get me wrong, but doing other things, according to what the game is for the lighter mechs to have their roles. And that would
so I'm
be
definitely hoping that this is one of the things that they are looking for the new match score system. Reduce the amount of match score you get from damage by 10 to 50%. Since we don't know how match score is currently composed, this 10 to 15% again means nothing to us.
Yeah.
But it's kind of the same as the stomp weight. It kind of means nothing until we get the full numbers.
Yeah.
But it's good to know that they are looking to reduce the impact of damage, which I think is very much the correct move.
Yeah.
Since light mechs are currently again, we're seeing Turret Warrior Online because large mechs do get the most match score, and getting high match score is rewarding because it kind of says you're good if you get high match score.
Yeah.
So if you always play light mechs and your match score is always terrible, well, that's not rewarding. So you're probably going to switch to something heavier. Yep. And I'm definitely agreeing that light mechs need some love in terms of match score.
Yeah. One thing about just changing it to be more objective score, the issue with that, at least, is that a fair number of matches, of course, are just skirmish, in which, of course, light mechs will still see the negative effects in play. There are particular rewards according to whatever weight class you are. I forget what they're called, like protected light. If you're a light mech near an assault guy and you're helping him out in a firefight, there's a certain trigger for it, but basically it's the...
That one's interesting because I've learned from looking at this list that protected medium is killing an enemy who's attacking a medium class teammate. So it's not just about yourself. I too always thought it's just if you are in a medium, but it's actually if your teammate who was being attacked is a medium.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, it would actually create rules for the light mechs, like narking, tagging, that kind of stuff, hit and runs, and all that kind of stuff that actually would help the light mechs as far as match score. And I think it will create rules instead of like arbiter, type things, just like you're saying, counter ECMs for the ECM mechs. Yeah, I like this.
I think hidden one would be a good trigger for light medium mechs to like harass tech stealth and anything that has kind of to do with not being in the front of it would be a good flag that does mostly assist support mix. I think something like tag
You know,
damage.
I'm just going to cheese this though with my tag narc.
Oh yeah, you're gonna cheese it.
Yeah,
but tag damage is a terrible example if you attempt to buff light mechs, because tag damage is really benefiting those heavy and assault streak mechs or LRM mechs, where you just have your tag constantly on and throw out damage numbers. That's how you get tag damage. Not
the simplest and sometimes most effective change might just simply be, oh, it looks like on average, light mechs are earning 70% the match score of bigger mechs, of the average mech on the field. So what we'll do is we'll times their match score at the end by 1.3, something like that. And you don't have to make it particular rewards that you associate with lights, because hit and run can be achieved by mediums. A Black Lana or a Skokomish could try and abuse hit and run. But it's just the idea that you, behind the scenes, multiply it to help out the smaller guys to recognize that it'll be harder for them to accumulate that match score. And therefore, you like hit and run in particular, it really benefits if you have a PPC, you shoot someone and you leave for 10 seconds. But what if I'm a Javelin or Jenna 2C with SRMs? I'm a brawler. I get in and I fight for a solid 30 seconds and either I'm dead or they're dead. Well, they aren't going to benefit from hit and run.
True. And I'm actually going to take your idea one step further. Multiplying as according to your class or tonnage is a good place to start, but you could technically take a look at both your tonnage and your theoretical DPS and then compare that, because a light mech that's able to constantly put out his DPS like close to his max DPS for the full game is obviously contributing a lot more than a different light mech that theoretically can do a lot more damage over the game, but only shoots 1/10 of the time that he could.
Well, that's with damage as well too, basically based off your damage, right?
Yeah,
you could do a whole bunch of things whereupon you give different multipliers to different mechs, to different variants. Like obviously, a Wolfhound will perform very differently to a Locust. Like just the sheer firepower.
Okay, we're talking about PGI though. Okay, let's not go too crazy. Let's not go too crazy here.
That's why at least you keep it simple. Just say all light mechs, 30% buff to their match score earnings gives you a reason to play. Just if you're good at light mechs, the game will recognize, or at least it won't penalize you as much, because even a good light mech pilot can only necessarily do so much work. And at least in the current system, the best light mech pilots, at least they're going to be the ones who get a pinpoint medium pulse laser build or something like that. They're chewing off components or getting rear shots and killing efficiently, because light mechs just don't have the DPS. There's so much you can get into, but the simplest idea is just that I think a lot of us sympathize with the smaller mechs, because a lot of us like playing mediums and lights within our group. And with Turret Warrior Online and with PGI outwardly emitting it, I do feel like, you need to give a help to new players, as we mentioned before, but also to the faster, snippier mechs, so that they aren't considered worse players for some, because the matchmaker considers them to do less work as a bigger guy with twice the equipment.
Based with the DPS. Okay, did we go over all that kind of stuff there? Changes and everything else, proposes and everything. I think for myself, under the 1B core thing, I'm between 5 and 21. It depends on my matches. Depends on, I really, just all depends. That's just me. Based. What is everyone else? Like, go ahead and type it in to the chat below, and just figure out like what you guys are on the chart of 1B. But for me, I'll either do really good and player number 5, or just do horrible and I'm out of position, or I'm basically I get hammered like one time and player number 21. That's my matches, like, per se. Not like Ian, where he's exactly neutral.
I would say the more interesting question is, where do you think you're gonna end up ultimately? If the tiers are reset and the skill system is indeed 0-sum, so we have this bell curve distribution, where would you think you end up? I think that's a much more interesting question to think about.
I was going by per match type thing, but I'll probably end up like 7 or 8 around there. I'm not the best, but I'm okay. Type thing between 7 and 8. And how about you guys?
Ultimately, I don't want to commit to saying that, just because on paper this is zero sum, that necessarily you will get a bell curve at the end. The main feedback is the matchmaker and how it balances out the teams and everything else, which ultimately might not be that impacted because we haven't heard much talk about that. We haven't seen how the numbers and all the stuff really works behind the scenes. We haven't experienced it with the new system. It's really hard for me to personally predict how the system will pan out. My guess, at least, is when I said I'm top 4 to top 12 is based on the current situation in MWO, whereupon the player base is only so large, and as long as you're at least for someone who I usually take fairly solid mechs and I have a solid play style that brings reliable results for the most part. Because I'm aiming for a reliable play style, I'm reliably in the top 12, and that will just mean I keep gaining score, and eventually reach tier 1. The question is there in my mind is the question of whether there's people who are somewhat consistent but not always consistent enough to get into tier 1, and therefore they end up in tier 2 for some reason. You could get the situation where if you're good enough, you will just keep gaining, you'll keep gaining slowly. Even though the total number of points remains the same, all it means is that some people will steadily be gaining and some people will be steadily losing.
So green.
I would be green or yellow, perhaps. It's
okay.
It's always hard to tell, but that's what I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay. And then Ian, like which just on average, just what do you think? You be neutral?
I don't know. I play so casually that I don't even look at my match score most of the time.
Okay.
I think on average I'd gain, but very, very slowly.
Yeah. And if you play enough matches, it might turn into an XP bar again. So, 3,750 for Biter and eventually Ian in brackets. But that's why I'm saying at least it doesn't necessarily have to mean that the total number of points in the system has to always remain the same. You can make it more punishing in higher tiers, and you can make it more rewarding in lower tiers. That way, the final slope, that slope at the end where it's supposed to be the fewest number of players, those are supposed to be the most hardcore that are able to win in the really difficult environment. Whereas, that would make some sense. At least tier 1, it's really hard to get anywhere, and it's really easy to slip away and fall back down into tier 2. Tier 2, it takes forever to climb, but you've proven that you're somewhat consistent. Tier 3 is where everyone sort of is, and it's kind of, it's completely zero sum. And then the lower tiers, again, it's very easy to climb up or somewhat easy to climb up.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was episode 123 of the First Circuit Podcast. Tonight's hosts were Ian. You waves. Biter. I can't tell if Biter's waving. And myself, old Bob.
You're so yellow today, Biter.
Yeah, I know. Are you blue? I got a blue there.
What? I'm orange on my screen.
You're orange. That's orange.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, it's a dress situation again.
Oh no.
And myself, old Bob Windsor 025. Thank you for watching and everything you guys do for the community. And we'll have episode 124 in 2 weeks or so. So have a good night and thank you for watching and listening. Bye.
Bye-bye.